therapeutic state to sell us this idea that our discomforts are diseases because we have a drug. They have drugs to sell us for it, right?
Thank you.
So we've seen this with alcoholism. That's not a disease. It's not a cellular dysfunction. In fact, alcoholism, I'm just going to give you this little aside, was developed by this AAA who gets funding from big alcohol to sell you this idea that only some people can't tolerate alcohol and the rest of us can. That is a lie. No human body can tolerate alcohol. It's a carcinogen. We're told this to sell ourselves the idea of drinking in moderation, and that's why it fits to use alcoholism as a disease. It's not. Nobody can handle alcohol. Same thing with processed food. Obesity, not a disease. Obesity causes disease. Where does it come from? Well, it's some pretty actually interesting manipulation from food science that's meant to hijack your brain. For that, I really want to recommend this book, The Dorito Effect. Really interesting about how your body thinks it's getting something from junk food and why you crave it, and there's nothing there. Now, am I saying obesity is a no-fault disease? No. But processed food works on the brain like alcoholism. And again, we're selling ourselves these ideas that only some people can't handle it and the rest of us can. There's money there. There are people who want you to think that. Now, does this mean there's no mental disease? Well, according to Thomas Saz, there isn't. I don't want to make that argument full stop, and you're free to point me to other places, but this is an interesting argument that I just want to entertain the research of Thomas Saz, because once you look into the history of mental health, you know, it's not a great history. He talks about where we got the idea of mental disease was from this guy. Schizophrenia was invented in 1924 by Eugene Bleuler, who used to treat patients without their consent. And in 1911, he called this dementia precox schizophrenia. And he said it was an uncontested medical dogma, and they used this to justify incarceration and treatment of people without their consent. And then, there you go. There's some drugs that go along with it. So this is, I want to recommend that you read a book called Pharmocracy if you're really interested in how we got from this to medicalization of all discomforts. So that brings up the idea of these kids today. Do we have any data that would show that all of this mental health discussion makes them better? We don't. In fact, we're starting to get data that shows that it could make them worse. In which case, if your child in their school has all of this promotion around mental health awareness, that would seem to me that we're experimenting on young people because we don't know that it makes them better. However well-intentioned, maybe it's making them worse. Does that mean that all health professionals are bad people, or, you know, people teaching these courses are bad? Of course not. I think they're well-intentioned. But do they know that their methods will help, or do they maybe need to think about how they would cause harm? And in fact, there are professionals trying to raise the alarm about this. This is Stanford Dean Julie Lythcott-Haims. She writes in her fantastic book, How to Raise an Adult, that children who have no life skills and who are young adults and are coddled have actually more anxiety because the world seems so scary to them. So not only are we telling children they're too weak, but we're not helping them to become strong enough or giving them the tools when it's hard. And this is where the New York Times then goes off the rails and actually suggests non-pharmaceutical aid for mental health just to cope for kids. They say maybe we need more prosaic things like sleep, decreased homework burden, play, exercise, music, art, community engagement, all things that, you know, used to be once coping mechanisms because life is hard. And so you think about the way that we're talking to young people by just telling them, you can't handle it, it's too hard, this is not your fault, it's outside of you, it's a no-fault disease, right? Or what if we told our kids, this is really hard, we need to toughen you up and get you ready to handle it? Would that maybe help these kids? So let me know what you think of all of this research in the chat.
I'd like to point out something that was a sobering fact when I realized it, and this was, I mean, it was the discussion I had, because I used to work in the health science library at Ball State. And anyway, I was with the head librarian, we were talking about this, but I could get cancer they could say, well, we can operate on that cancer and you should be fine. You can take this medication, you should be fine. And I can say, nope. And there's nothing the hospital can do about it. I can just be like, I'm just going to go live with my cancer and die.
Yeah.
And they're like, they have to go with that. Mental health, they can force you to take treatment. So they cannot force you, no hospital can force you to take a life-saving procedure, but they can force you to take a mental health procedure.
Yes.
A court can order it to be done. Well, that's not scary. Like, when you think of the grip that the mental health professionals have, like, to me, that's the most frightening thing ever. Because if somebody's just like, you have a problem, I'm like, no, I don't. They're like, yes, you do, and we're treating you for it, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, it's totally out of your control because of the sort of, there's a long history there of how this unfolded from these days of like incarcerating mental health patients against their will, and how we've really gotten that far from that.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of an incarceration with all these kids with the gender stuff because the pharmaceutical industry is preying upon them and their weakness and promoting this gender ideology, and we're all affirming their mental illness. And so, I just feel bad for kids that are in that situation that are being preyed upon.
Gabby in our chat says facts. That's right. You have two doctors here. I guess in their household says that's facts. Two doctors here. Instead of having two.
I could go to court and say, I think my brother David is crazy, and if that court agrees, he could be forcibly institutionalized and medicated against his will. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's just nothing you can think about it. You better be nice to me. How much that statement is shitting me up with Thanksgiving. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have a Britney Spears show right out loud. I don't know if that's the same thing.
I don't know if they want to use her as a success story for mental health. She dances with knives.
Yeah. But,
Yeah, don't put Britney Spears in
I was
this.
just thinking of Britney.
Okay.
It was named back to Britney.
In this story. Yeah, well, let us know what you think. And as long as you're going through some of these books that I recommended, I do highly recommend Pharmocracy by Tom Staz from the early 90s before he passed away in, I think, 2001 or 2008. But he warned about this for a very long time, and we have continued to march down this path of, like, everything is a disease, and it maybe is not helping us. Maybe, a lot of times there's always a mom who comes to me, it's like, we need to get involved in this with the girls, and I always say to them, no, my job is only to prepare my daughter for that situation. My job is not to control that situation. And moms are always like,
Well, moms can't. It's amazing to me to hear this mom's group because they're like, they can't handle it. They're like, my daughter, I'm going to have to call the school and do something. Like, no, you're not. We're not calling the school. We're going to let our daughter handle it. She's going to handle this and navigate this world herself. We're going to set up a generation of snowflakes.
right,
They can't handle any adversity in their life.
yeah,
Like we are put here on this earth to grow from discomfort, right? So you have to be stressed in order to grow. It's how you deal with it.
your discomfort is a disease.
But now it's a disease, and I need to take some sort of medication for it, I guess.
Right.
To tamp me down, like bubble wrap and wrap me up in some sort of brain fog.
Yeah.
And just go through the rest of my life like a zombie, I guess. That's what we want. Yeah. Anyway.
All right, well, I would love your thoughts. If you want to argue that mental disease is a disease, I'm listening. Tell me what you want me to read next, and I'll read it. Let me know what you think.
And also let us know how many more mugs we can do on the set tonight. And let us know if you'd like to subscribe to the show. You can actually join our Plus Club. We have a private community, which if you'd like to join it, we'd love for you to. Right now the show is free. You can watch the show on Rumble and YouTube and Twitter for free. But if you